to start on the way. Okay, EQ, IQ, wisdom. I'm Valerie Cobb.
And I'm Melanie Asher. Are we going to throw in every other letter that goes with Q too? Because we can do OQ, IQ, UQ. We can throw in all kinds of Qs. What kind of Qs are we talking about today?
Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to just tee up a little bit. We talked about this ain't our first rodeo and that you've never been to a rodeo, really. So it isn't even your first.
This reference will make sense in a moment.
Exactly. All right. Okay, so to tee this up, first of all, Mindsetaholics is about helping founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, every acronym. Do we want to throw in Amazon, AI, every SEO kind of whatever? No, just kidding.
I think to sum it up, it's honestly the mindset of growing a business and whatever your role is in that. There's a technical aspect. So whether it's AI, marketing, sales, budgets, whatever that may be, that's the professional, the tactical end of it. But a bigger part of growing and scaling a business is honestly about the mindset. Where is your mind? Where are you getting in your own head? And where are you overthinking things?
Yeah, leave it to Mel to be completely serious about this answer. Yes. Yes. And yes.
I tried to be more streamlined in the answer, not necessarily serious. We're still defining mindsetaholics, so the more we can refine, the better.
So at the end of the day, I will say that Mel's superpower is to take all, she's got 50,000 of them, but to take all the technical, summarize it, even take my brain dump, summarize it, stick it into something that everybody goes, oh, that makes sense. So love it. And I am only lightly teasing because I know that she can take it. But when we talk about EQ, let's get back to the Qs and wisdom and why it ties into Mindsetaholics so much, right? Yeah. We've been talking on past episodes, I think, about a lot of shiny objects, not sending out sleazy sales letters because that's a mindset, right? And we've been talking about just mindset around the growth of the business, as you said. So there's a few things when we're not chasing shiny objects. There's kind of this debate between EQ, IQ. And for those that might be embarking down their first journey, EQ is obviously emotional quotient and IQ is intelligence quotient or whatever. If I mess that up, Mel will.
Those are the technical names. The casual conversation understanding of it is EQ is emotional intelligence and IQ is essentially book smarts.
So let's talk when we say book smarts, and then let's tie the two into wisdom. So I think wisdom a bit is like a funnel. Okay. And a lot of times one person described it as the practical application of knowledge. So when you're doing intelligence and you're high IQ, it doesn't mean that you can practically apply what you know. You can know a ton of things.
And I think is all about book smarts and knowing things factually, but not understanding how to implement them or live them in your day-to-day life.
So
and
live them.
A lot of disconnect in relationships, in how you make decisions, and how you just interact with people because you're so smart that essentially you get in your own way.
Yes, you get into your own way. I don't have that worry. I don't have to be that smart.
Neither do I.
But at the end of the day, in business application, it's to say you can know something as an organization, and you can even create a product that knows something and does something. But if the globe or whoever you're selling to can't practically apply it in their and get people to adopt it,
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of at a standstill. So for me, when I was thinking about this, emotional. So we buy for our reasons and we buy on emotions, but it's data informed. And that's kind of where I'm like, I think of this funnel going down to wisdom, right? You have IQ, you have EQ. Now, with EQ, they do say that emotionally intelligent people go much further. We talk about in an apocalypse, we want to be around my one daughter because she is so emotionally intelligent, right? I mean,
So what you're bringing up there is there's two elements of emotional intelligence. It's the awareness of yours and your interaction with others, but it's also the awareness and being able to modify your approach to another person based on where they are, what they're feeling, what they're believing, what they're doing. So EQ ends up being more complicated because it's more almost wishy-washy and can change by the minute.
yeah.
So when
I
you
get
combine the
Oh, go ahead.
EQ with the IQ, and a common thing I noticed in how our brains work is we like to position things as black or white. One is better than the other. Would you rather be book
Definitely.
smart or would you rather be emotionally smart? And there's arguments on both sides. And what I hear you saying is it's neither and it's both. You can
Mhm.
be emotionally smart, but not be smart enough to make an informed decision. Or you can be book smart enough to make the decision, but not understand how it's going to affect the people around you. So then that's where wisdom comes into play, right?
Yes. Yeah. I love that. I mean, honestly, you're saying to me, EQ is very fluid.
Yes.
I almost think EQ can be in business terms. A lot of times we're like, okay, test them for EQ. How do you honestly test for EQ? And I know that we have quadrants. I know Travis Bradberry and all those guys. They have these quadrants, and those are good. They're really good starters for that. I guess for me, um, it just brings up more questions, right?
It
Because as human beings, we are fluid, meaning we are constantly changing.
does.
And I know years ago I was an ENTJ, and everybody's like, "There's clubs for ENTJs because we're so hard to deal with, or whatever." I don't know why there were clubs. It's like less than 3% on Myers Briggs, and I'm going, "Yeah, I don't know if I tested again if I would still be an ENTJ after all the life experiences."
So what's funny is early on in my career, those tests were super, super popular. And
Mhm.
I was I was approached numerous times to add those assessments into my work.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is I took every one of them because you have to. And same thing. They were like, oh, this is so rare. This is like, it's so rare. Very few people are this. And this is like the guaranteed profile type for a CEO or whatever. And this is what you'll be the rest of your life. You're never, ever, ever going to change. And I'm sitting there going, let's see. I was in a good mood when I took that and things are going really well, or I was in a bad mood and I just lost a huge contract. No.
Well, and that's the fluid part of it, right? So
Yeah.
EQ, it basically we're here growing and consuming information from the time that we're born.
Mhm.
If we were to say that we don't change, then we would all be a group of babies, 2-year-olds. Some of us are in our mind, right? But some of us are not. But
Supposedly, the core foundation of our profile, or not our profile, our personality is set by the age of 7. So basically, we'd all be running around as 7-year-olds.
Okay. Well, again, technically, always Mel is correct. I am more like flowery and just make big, So, anyways, but at the end of the day, this is true. So we run around as we have tendencies toward things, but can you learn and grow past some of those tendencies? Sometimes
Exactly.
I've learned to compartmentalize them. And that is what I feel is part of the fluid movement of emotional intelligence. Because in business transactions, so let's take it to, I was talking to somebody the other day and he was like, oh, I got burnt on that contract. Well, fundamentally, the contract has to be right, and therefore we have an attorney who signed it and said it is right, and there should be no loopholes. That would be kind of IQ. EQ would be, fundamentally that is correct, but perhaps I need to also estimate and look at how people will see this and how people will use the contract and how blah, 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 right? Wisdom says, I got burned 12 times with all these different loopholes growing through the ages. Therefore, this is loophole number 1. This is loophole number 2. This is loophole number 3. And
here's how we prevent them from happening again.
And here's how
That is wisdom.
That is wisdom. And what prompted kind of the topic is some gentleman said, no, Valerie, you're not selling CRO services. You're not selling startup services. You're not selling anything. You are selling wisdom. And I started to think about that. And I think in any entrepreneur's journey or any business journey, when you create a tool, it is to solve a need and a challenge based on, hopefully, customer success, customer journey, user experience. Oh, it's solving a problem based on wisdom.
Yes.
We didn't have Moore's law. We didn't have all this information on a pinhead overnight.
Exactly. And I think a key in wisdom, as opposed to IQ or EQ, is language. A lot of times when things go wrong, regardless of what it is, the reason it goes wrong is because there was not a mutual language to articulate where something was wrong in the first place.
Oh,
and so when you're able to
well, Mel.
So when you're able
Mel, that's what this episode's going to be called.
No, we're playing up the whole EQ IQ thing. I loved that. The second you said it, I'm like, oh, we're going to have fun with that one. Practicing our vowels.
Yeah.
Which is why I jumped in with OQ, AQ.
OKRs, KPIs. What else?
We're gonna have to make up things for OQ and AQ and UQ.
Okay.
There we go. We can have our audience put it in the comments what those stand for, because I don't have a clue.
Octopus quotient. You can multitask with all the arms and legs. Oh, but there's a study. You cannot multitask. So
that's true. Women are slightly better at it than men. However, even women are not good at that. So.
But you were explaining when I said, so,
what was I explaining?
I don't even remember now. I lost it. But you were explaining the steps in wisdom with it and why, and you were taking us down that road. So
it'll either come back and we'll jump back to it, or we'll just move on to something else. It all works.
Maybe
But
we need the squirrel this time.
maybe. I think we squirreled ourselves.
Oh my gosh. There's the new Smurf movie out, and he said, I smurfed my pants, and I started laughing out loud on the teaser. Okay. I was like writing down these one-liners. That's my next LinkedIn post. Here, I smurfed my pants. Oh my gosh.
I needed that today. Thank you.
Yeah, I tell people that this is just our therapeutic session.
It totally is. It totally is.
Oh.
So tying back to, we started off with this ain't our first rodeo. That's what wisdom is when you can walk into a situation knowing whatever it is, and because you have the wisdom, your response essentially is, this ain't my first rodeo. Been there, done that, and know how to solve the problem and know how to prevent the problem from happening again.
So often I get asked the question, and obviously I even got asked this question when I was 25. So this is not an age thing, but often I get asked the question. But right out of college, should I be able to be whatever senior position? And so to say that, let's roll it up to our equation of wisdom. Mm-hmm. So if you look down your product, if you look down your resume, if you look down whatever you're selling today, does it check the boxes of that experience for users, for the role, the whatever it is? And a question I always say is, can you gain wisdom in a short time, long time, in between time? What do you think, Mel?
I don't
or
think
time might not even be a factor for you.
I was just gonna say, I don't think time is a direct factor. I think it's an indirect.
Okay.
And from a role perspective, it's not, can you gain it? Mm-hmm. If you're sitting in a role, the assumption is you already have it. So, for example, a challenge that I face with clients all the time, and you know this because you face this too, is companies often view marketing as a nice to have when money is good. So they want to pay the cheapest price for it. I get it. And on the flip side, you're paying people to do tasks without the wisdom of knowing what those tasks actually do in relation to the bigger goal.
Okay.
And it's a contradiction. If you only care about a task, then a task is completely irrelevant to a business.
Okay.
But if the task is intended to help accomplish a company goal, then there needs to be wisdom behind A, is this the right task? B, if this is the right task, how do we accomplish that task? Or how do we execute on that task so we can accomplish the goal? And then what does this lead into for next steps? And unless you have the wisdom to put all of that together, outsourcing a simple, cheap task isn't going to help you. And in many cases, long term, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah. And that's a good analogy. There's two that I would use also. One, EBITDA. Mm-hmm. We'll get back to that one. And two, if you're e-commerce, and you're selling a widget, not a high emotionally, like I got to vet this like crazy, even though we already talked about Amazon carts and stalls, right? So let's talk B2B. Maybe a higher price or a higher price ticket item, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's research that is invested by the buyer in order to get to a point that they can make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even though sometimes we're impulse buyers, you don't typically impulsively in a business buy $100,000 transaction,
Oh,
right?
you
You don't just go today. And it is the sum of all those experiences that lead you down the trail. I can't
Mm-hmm.
think the trail. You enter the trail and you have a bunch of questions you ask, and that takes some time. If you're asking the wrong questions, wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because wisdom enters into that because you come back and you're like, okay, which question should I ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they go down those steps based on assumptions from their truth or whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
To ultimately make some kind of a decision or a no decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what can help with some of that, and then this brings me to EBITDA, the financial statements, right? It's not marketing sits in a revenue generation type point, right? I asked a marketer, well, really wasn't a marketer, just hired to do something. And I said, what is
As
the
an
ultimate
executor.
goal? What's the ultimate goal of marketing? And he's like, basically put out shiny objects. And I'm like, okay, let's narrow it down. For profit, what is the goal of marketing? And well, to put out content. And it was all the tasks or the items you could use, but he never could answer the goal of marketing. So how in his experience or how over time does he have to learn what that really feels like? Even when I ask people, why do people buy? They all give me reasons, but they don't go to the fundamental truth of for their reasons, right? I mean, it's the
Well,
fundamental
that
truth.
brings up the other element, and this is why I gave a little hesitation when you asked about time.
Yeah.
If you're working with somebody whose sole job has been to execute tasks, let's say they're executing a task for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
If they only execute a task, they may be very well informed, they should be, and very highly capable in executing that task.
Yes.
That does not mean they have any understanding of the effects of that task on the greater goal, on the greater mission, on the greater purpose.
Or the practical application of
Yes,
knowledge.
or the practical application. It means they're good, they have the IQ,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have the wisdom, even though they have spent 20 years doing something.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Or in
that's why time is not relevant, but yet you can have somebody else who comes in, is hired to execute a task, sees that they completely screwed it up, and figures out how to fix it in a way that accomplishes the bigger goal. That's wisdom. And they gained that in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And they can
in
do
their
it.
lane. So I think wisdom is in the lane. I don't have a lick of wisdom when it comes to let's see a lot of things. But
I don't disagree with that, but I continue.
I was kidding, but I don't like okay, I've never experienced, let's just talk about this. So
You haven't been to this rodeo.
I haven't been to this rodeo. So I don't have the knowledge to do that. And over 20 years, if I were focused on learning the knowledge, I could probably practically apply it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I just hit a button over and over again, I probably haven't worked in that lane enough to have that practical knowledge to step outside that lane. So yeah, the time is really insignificant in the equation. And the sad part is it takes wisdom to know how much time it takes to do something. Like when you said marketing, you were like, we run into this all the time. And I do this with even on the sales side or on the financial statements or whatever we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is, you get with a founder and they're like, I need this yesterday. Well, you're going to have to actually have a human being as a salesperson. And that human being takes 3 months ramp, 6 months to get to where they need to be. And there's tons of studies that say that, but you're telling me you want to impact that time. And I am telling you from a wisdom standpoint, that ain't going to happen. And from a marketing standpoint, you're 6 to 9 months for ranking on SEO for all these things. So the time component, but applying the wisdom part of it is saying that you know that that's the time component that will happen, and to practically work through it so that you founders and entrepreneurs and business owners, you can't shortcut something that takes 6 to 9 months, and you can shortcut something that takes a second. It doesn't matter. The time component.
Exactly.
The shortcut is the wisdom component. You can't shortcut it.
I think the other element that we need to add in for wisdom is not just time, but the personal experience.
Yeah,
this can tie in IQ as well, because you can sit and read every book from now until eternity and still never get through every book. But you're still only going to have book knowledge of a topic. And that may help you make a more informed decision to learn through others' experiences. But there's a different type of learning when you learn through books or you learn through case studies versus personal experience or those personal to you. And you and I demonstrate this all the time. How many times do we, call each other and we're like, oh, we had this experience and this is how I'm left feeling and I don't know what to do. And the other one is like, okay, well, here's how I've handled it and here's my thought process behind it. Yeah. And, there's that element that needs to be factored into wisdom too. So it's the time can be a factor and experience is a factor. You can learn from others, but you can't guarantee that you're going to learn it as the same level of impact as the personal experience.
Yeah. And that is the crux. Experience. Yes. And again, how long it takes somebody to get that experience is the question of the hour. Some are very fast. Some get it right away. Some don't. I like to say that I'm a lifetime learner. So I probably audit the same course over and over again, simply because one, I either liked it or two, I needed it again.
Well, I think this is also where wisdom connects to EQ, because it's not just the awareness, but it's the ability to self-reflect. What was my role in this? What did I do? How could I have done it differently? Not necessarily better, because I think better is the wrong approach, but what are different ways I could have handled the situation to get or generate or receive a different outcome? And what can I learn from that? Because often our human experience is to blame another. And if you're just sitting there blaming another constantly, you're not actually learning. You're not gaining that wisdom. You're just, getting your high because for a moment you feel better than somebody else.
Okay, so a couple of tips to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some great books. I mean, there really are, even though you can't really test, there's 4 areas you can work on: your self-management of your own personal feelings, your external
Yep.
management. I won't get into all of those things. But what Mel just described in business speak is the debrief. So a lot of times that self-reflection and root cause analysis, the debrief creates a neutral space for that feedback for yourself. And sometimes we're wicked at throwing ourselves under the bus, even in our own debrief, right? So just being accepting of the fact that you are going to fail.
Yep.
I find I learn 10 times more from my failures than I do my wins. The wins is a moment of acceleration.
Yes.
The failures are what really give me that experience. Now, I'm not trying to let you fail, right? We talked about that in another episode, talking about those things. But in the debrief, there are 3 things that I like to do. And then Mel, you can say and add to it.
Yeah.
But I like to always start at the end of a project. So this is for business, right? So start at if the project was a sales call, if the project was the end of an event for marketing, if the project was an internal meeting, I don't care. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's a little snip in time that you interacted and you did something to get us something. Go back and debrief on the thing. Okay. A thing. So from there, I like to go in and I like to start out with what went well, start on a positive. What went well in this situation? What could be improved upon? I don't want to say what didn't go well. What could be improved upon? And what will we do next time? That's it. That's 3 steps. They do that at NASCAR, 3 steps afterwards. They do that in all sorts of situations. And I don't care, every business leadership book that I've seen, it's a variation on exactly that theme. 1, 2,
Yep.
and even smarter, if you can do a round robin, if it involves other people, to have them also come in and do those things. Not smarter, but I find that which we create, we own.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just telling people, here's the root cause and this is where we're changing, right? So
Exactly.
that's mine. Now Mel will tell you her simplified version of it because she is so good at that.
I don't know if mine is simplified though. I definitely agree in the debrief. Where I will add a step is the moment of self-reflection, meaning it always takes more than a person to pull off an event or to execute on something. If each person privately does your 3 steps and records them, puts them in a Word document, puts them in a Notion section that is private to them, and then we come together to have that conversation, it is immensely more powerful. And the reason for that is when you self-reflect and you jot down the good, the bad, and the need to improve. And I have no problem with saying bad, because if you can't address that something didn't go well, then it becomes this, oh, how do I not hurt everybody's feelings? And we're going to just make it sound okay. We have to address where we screwed up. And we have to normalize somewhere we failed. And it's okay. It's not about the failure that matters. It's about what you do about it. It's about how you handle it. It's how you own it and what you're going to do different next time.
Yeah.
So that self-reflection, what I have found in working with clients, is incredibly powerful to making that group debrief actually have an impact.
Yeah.
And then after that, the follow-up to this. So I'm adding I also have 3 steps, but I'm doing it in a horizontal way where you did it in a vertical way. You did it in
Or
the middle meeting.
sideways or space-time continuum. It depends.
Exactly.
Remember, we've got to be able to also know what our recipients need to hear at that time. So I'll change the language to match
Yeah.
however their emotional whatever. But yeah, keep going.
And then in the follow-up, it's whoever was most directly responsible, they need to receive that private feedback in addition to having received the public group feedback. And it is their job to then, okay, look at the entire thing. And from this person's perspective, here's what we did really well. Here's what we need to improve. And oh, I didn't even realize that wasn't even thought of. And put that then into a master plan for moving forward.
Yes. Yes. Everything that Mel said, we can sum this whole thing up. And those are your tips of the day. Remembering that in everything that you're going to learn, the way that everybody approaches feedback will be slightly different.
Yes.
And I know a lot don't love from the sales side of the fence, the chameleon effect, but the chameleon effect as a leader is to be able to kind of know in EQ what they would be expecting in a safe place and to be able to monitor it. So we can put steps down till the cows come home. I don't think I've ever had a cow come home. So now we've got rodeo and cows.
I've never been to a rodeo either. However, I've had many situations where I'm like, this ain't my first rodeo.
Exactly. So you will need to adapt the debrief to your situation, your circumstances, but functionally, whatever the word is that you use, the definition behind it or the intent behind it needs to be exactly what Mel was saying, right? And at the end of the day, I said it only one time this time. Dang it. As
You caught yourself saying it and then you addressed it again and said it again.
So 2. I won't say that. Okay. So we are wanting you to maybe put in the acronyms down, comment on the acronyms. We'd love to hear them. And we'd love to hear your take on the debrief.
Yes. How do you handle it? How can we make a debrief better? Or do you have a completely different approach that maybe we didn't think of?
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Like, share, comment, and let us know what the other vowel cues are because we don't know. But we'd be happy to have another session and talk about OQ and AQ and UQ.
And what other big names can we put into this? Well, Mel Asher and Valerie Cobb.
There we go. Signing
Have
up.
a great day.